Alice sat on her bed and looked out the window. The sun was shining outside, and its beams were playing with the endless particles of dust dancing in the air. It was the day to leave. Her bed was stripped, as was the rest of the apartment. She has gotten rid of almost everything. Only 2 suitcases that contained most of her possessions stood by the door. She was ready to leave it all behind and move north. She couldn't help but moan quietly as she stood up. Not sure where her body was aching from, she powered through on her mission to finalize the last task required before her departure. Several hours later, she was sitting on the train and looking out the window. It was a lot of effort moving everything, and she was grateful for the forced rest ahead of her. It didn't take long for her to fall asleep. She saw Lara in her dream. They were walking in a meadow, free to hold hands and show gestures of affection they never could have in the city. She smiled at her wife and ran ahead to pick up a flower that caught her attention. Alice tore it and turned to put it in Laura's hair, but her wife was nowhere to be seen. She shouted her name but never received a response. The ground underneath her started to shake. Clouds covered the sky and her vision blurred. Alice plunged through the crack in the soil, falling into the darkness deep below. She straightened her bag with a jolt and focused on the landscape outside the train. The dream was an unwelcome start of her adventure, but she would not let that discourage her. She was aware that she was leaving the place where Laura and she spent their lives together. But it was time to move on. For a moment, everything went silent as she dove into her thoughts. Upon her return, the train car was empty. She was the only passenger. Then, the seat beneath her started to tremble, and a cynically careless music crept into her consciousness. She was helpless one more time, and once again swallowed by the unforgiving reality around her. "You can turn the music off," Ron told his friend and colleague. He sounded relieved and surprised at the same time. "It worked. It will require some tweaking, but with the proper stage direction and more fitting music, it will be spectacular. This is it, his break. He will finally show everybody what he is capable of." With a worryingly careless motion, he emptied another injection into Alice's arm, and her body went limp. He was no longer worried. He was excited. "Look at them!" the little girl exclaimed while walking with her grandmother on the street. Her finger was pointing to a giant billboard on the building opposite them. The elderly woman looked up and only got a glimpse of the image before the screen changed to an offer shouting about yet whiter teeth. She has seen the image before. A new show, The People of Light, it was called, and it has been advertised around the city for the last several months. She has never seen the show, but has heard the rumors and spotted a few videos, although she was never particularly interested. The little hand almost slipped out of her palm when she tried to continue walking, as the girl refused to go any further, waiting for the image to show up again. It was always challenging to get her moving once she spotted one of these. She desperately wanted to see the performance. In her imagination, those strange people could be her friends. But she was way too young to even attend. She's only 8 years old, while the show allows 18 and older only. 3 different offers, 3 different messages and companies promising something new and better before the poster again reflected in the little eyes full of anticipation. It was a sleekly designed piece that only barely utilized the possibilities of the digital screen by including a slowed down video extracted from the performance. The copy was a standard to what one could expect from a freak show. Letters stretched and bent, but the colors limited, so they maintained some mystique and did not appear childish. They have been using the same graphics and language to talk to the city, which kept evolving faster than anybody could comprehend. The image of the human-like figures with glowing necks, arms and faces became a part of the daily visuals, as grey as the walls of the building behind it. The girl finally got satisfied with what she had seen and followed her grandmother's pull forward. The woman knew she would hear about the poster for the next few minutes, and she would again have to repeat the same sentences, trying to get through to the little brain and make it understand that it was not in her power, nor in the power of her parents, to take her to the show. But unexpectedly, the girl remained quiet all the way home. When they entered the apartment, she slipped out of her grandma's grip and ran upstairs to her room, closing the door behind. She didn't seem upset, she didn't voice any concerns. That was unusual for her little Nora, Helen thought. But after all, children changed their opinions very quickly, and perhaps that was an idea Nora had to execute straight away. Helen continued through the hall towards the kitchen, where her husband, daughter, and son-in-law sat around the dinner table. Their eyes were focused on something laying on the wooden surface, and they only looked up once Helen got right behind her husband's chair and touched his back. "Oh, hey, you are back." Her daughter smiled in her direction, but her eyes moved back down before Helen even responded. Leaning over her husband's head, she saw what they were all watching. It was a small screen playing a video showing the People of Light performance. It was filmed clearly from the audience, as the view often got obstructed by someone's head. "I thought they weren't allowed to film from the audience," Helen nodded, surprised. "We weren't, but we did." Her son-in-law sounded almost proud. "You went? Why didn't you tell me? How is Nora supposed to get over her obsession with these creatures if you keep feeding them to her?" It took a moment before anyone responded, but her daughter looked from the screen on which a silhouette was spinning in a ring at a scarily high speed. "We knew you would disapprove of it. You never liked them, and Nora will be fine. We won't show her the video." Helen didn't say anything in response, only shook her head and continued to the kitchen to drop off the shopping she was carrying the whole time. Leaning on the counter, she watched the three people by the table for a moment. They were doing well. Although Helen herself did not work anymore and cared for Nora, the rest all had jobs that kept them busy but also allowed them to live a comfortable life. Not everybody was this lucky, and they all knew it. She loved all of them, even her husband, who has been becoming quieter with age, and her son-in-law, who turned her beloved only child into a rule-breaker, often defying her mother. At the end of the day, they always met here, ate dinner, watched a movie, walked, or played a board game, like a family should.